Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online build video with me, Sherman. The first build, guys, for the Wrathstone DLC is going to be Meridia's Guardian, of course. This is a long time build that I've been releasing almost every update since I started doing Elder Scrolls stuff, and I wanted to make sure that what I release for you guys is going to be something that's going to be good and it's going to do its job for tanking and stuff like that. Now you got to remember, Meridia's Guardian isn't like your in-game typical tank build. It is actually a build that's made to transition players from dungeons into trials. So if you guys are looking for a good build to take you from dungeons to trials, this is going to be it. This is the Meridia's Guardian. It is a tank build made for the Templar, and it is a build that I have played for a while, off and on. I don't play it anymore because I've moved on to other things. I mostly play the Avenger tank, and I'll be releasing that one as well, but I did want to go over this. It still works to this day. I will say that. There's nothing about it that is bad. It's actually a really good build, and it's really easy to put together. This is why it is considered an average build, or a advanced build, not a main tank build for in-game, but it is one that you can use to get to in-game. So let's go ahead and get right into it. As you can see, this is a high elf Templar. I switched it out from being a wood elf to high elf because high elf, surprisingly enough, is actually really good this update for the Templar tank. So we're going to get into that. 21k Magicka, 36k health, 21.5k stamina. The stamina has to be higher than the Magicka in order for this to work, and that's why you see just a very small difference there, not a bigger difference. Resistance is coming in at 24, 21, unbuffed. When you buff up, if I can get the right skill, when you buff up, you go to 32, 29, and that is the where the resistances are capped, and this is on the sword and board bar. When you swap bars, you go to 30, 27, so you can still tank with this even with a staff, an ice staff, on the back bar, and we are using an ice staff, guys. Alright, going on down, we are using the Atronach Mundus Stone for the increased Magicka recovery. We are using Tristat food, and let's go ahead and get into the gear now. So the food we are using is the longfin pasty and melon sauce, one of the best foods you can get. Usually you can pick up a stack of 200 of this for around 5k gold, so it's not too bad. Tripods are going to be your best thing for this. Don't try to use other pots, just use tripods. The live versions or the crafted tripods are better. They give you about 9k health, they give you 7k Magicka stamina. They are a lot better than the Crown Store. Alright, let's start with the monster set, because this is one that a lot of people say is not good for tanking, but it is actually the best for most non-DK tanks. And that is the Swarm Mothers, guys. Swarm Mothers does take a little bit to get used to using if you're used to playing a DK. So the thing about this one is the one piece gives stamina recovery. The two piece, when you block an attack from an enemy that is further than 5 meters from you, you spin strands of silk to the and pull the enemy to you. This effect can occur once every second. So you can do this every 1 second. You can pull an enemy to you, and it's a really powerful set. But you've got to be able to use taunt at ranged. So if you use a ranged taunt, most of the time you can grab their attention, hold block, and then pull them right to you. Alright, next set we're using is, of course, the Ebon set. Ebon, hands down, is going to be the set most tanks are going to want to use because of the 1,000 extra health it gives up to 11 other members. Myself, personally, I like using Plague Doctors because it does give me more health as a high elf. But you can use Ebon, and that's the reason why I have it here. Otherwise, I would be using Plague Doctors here. The next set we're using is Meridia's Blessed Armor set. Now this drops in Cold Harbor. It is a really easy set to get if you farm it yourself. The jewelry, you do have to farm chests to find it because there is no dark anchors in Cold Harbor. But if you can get a full set of jewelry, it's not too difficult. We are running a full set. Now the thing that's nice about the set is its resistances. It's 2-piece and 4-piece or spell and physical resist, and the 3-piece is stam recovery. So it does give us a little bit more stam recovery, which goes well with the Swarm Mothers. And then with the Ebon set, we get all that max health, and then the healing taken, and then the extra health for us and our allies. But the main thing that we want this 5-piece bonus for is when you block an attack, you have a 33% chance to blind the attacker, causing them to miss all their attacks for 5 seconds. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds. It does not work on bosses or elite mobs. So when you're in like Mob Lorcage, it will work on all trash, but not the bigger mobs that like the sorcerers, the sword and shield guys, the archers with the panthers. It won't work on them, but it will work on all the trash. So it's a good set for trash fights, and it does help you stay alive better in trash. So that's why I like to use it, and it works really well in transitioning from tanking dungeons into tanking trials. Alright, so going over the traits real quick on the gear, we are running 3 infused on the head, the chest, and the legs. You can go reinforced on the chest if you want a little bit more resistance, but honestly this build doesn't need it. So I go with all infused. The smaller pieces are all sturdy, including the shield. The reason I do sturdy on the smaller pieces and the shield is this way I get a higher block cost reduction when I'm on my sword and board bar than even on my staff bar. So moving to the jewelry, we are running 2 or 3 Meridia's Blessed, and 2 of them are Trirune. You want to get these transmuted to Trirune not as quickly as you can, but you do want to do this so you do end up with a higher stamina and magicka pool. So try to get these 2 Trirune. The 3rd piece, the necklace, I always go infused with magic recovery. Templars are, I won't say magicka starved, but they can be. So it's good to go with this here. And then on the sword itself, we are going decisive. The reason for that is for the more ultimate gain, because we aren't using blood spawn. We want more ultimate gain, and this is going to give us more ultimate gain when we're on sword and board. It is a 20% chance to gain an extra ultimate, but you do gain ultimate pretty quick with this. The next thing is an ice staff infused with a crusher enchants. Now the decisive weapon, you can use whatever you want here. I find using absorbed stamina still works the best. So this allows me to get a little bit of stamina back every 4 seconds. People say it's 5, it's actually 4. Sorry, it is 5 seconds. It is every 5 seconds, but I still prefer getting that 177 back every 5 seconds. It's 3 seconds on infused. You can even run an infused weapon if you want with an absorbed stamina, but I prefer decisive. Alright, so now that we've gone over all the traits and everything, now it's time to jump into skills, guys. And make sure, and this is something I wanted to cover, somebody asked me this, why do you take all the class passes? Because you you never know if you're going to use all the skills with your class. So it's better to be prepared and to have the passives unlocked just in case you do wind up using skills from any skill line in your character's build. And it doesn't matter, because there's always going to be those moments where you're going to use a skill and one of your passives are going to become an effective use for you regardless. So make sure you get all your class passes. It is very, very important to make sure you get all your class passes unlocked. Even though you might not be using them, always make sure you get your class passes. Moving on to weapon passives, sword and shield is going to be the main ones you want to unlock. and destruction staff. And yes, get all the destruction staff, including the trifocus. The reason why you want the trifocus is it does have a taunt on an ice staff. If you are using, even if you're using a flame or a lightning staff, I would suggest getting this. But specifically for the ice staff, you have a ranged taunt that you can use for free. Alright. So yes, get the trifocus. And then armor passives, light armor, always go with the top 3 on light armor. You can't use the bottom 2, but the top 3 you can, especially this one. This gives you a little bit more resistance. This one gives you reduced spell costs, and with being a Templar, you already get 4% reduced magicka costs. This gives you an extra 2%. And then, of course, this one here reduces your snare and your sprint speeds. So this is actually pretty good now on a tank. Medium armor, top 2, again, and the bottom 1. Heavy armor, all of them. Just get them all. World skills. Now, a lot of people say go vampire. You don't have to be a vampire to be a tank. Being a vampire does give you increased stamina and magicka recovery, but it's not necessary. And the resistance thing that it gives, the 50% damage reduction when you get below a certain amount of health, is really good. But again, not necessary. But I do suggest taking the soul magic, soul summons, and soul lock. No matter what you play, these are 2 important ones. Especially soul summons allows you to revive without a soul gem every 1 hour. So even if you die in a trial, at least once you will be able to use revive without a soul gem. The other one allows you to fill empty soul gems whenever you kill an enemy. So I just like to keep those unlocked. Fighter's Guild, you just need intimidating presence and banish the wicked. Now I will point out an ability here. Silver Leash is another ability you can use, but you don't need it for this build because you are using Swarm Mothers. Swarm Mothers will pull the enemy to you. It's not necessary to use anything else. Alright, Mage's Guild. Just need Persuasive Will. That's it. Sigic Order, you can take all the Sigic Order skill lines if you want because of Deep Thoughts. If you do decide to use Deep Thoughts with this build, you can take them all. This way you get the Deliberation and the Concentrated Barrier. These are the only 2 passes you really need to take, but I go ahead and take them all because you never know. Alright, Undaunted. Make sure you get both the Undaunted passives. On Lion's War, you don't need any passives unless you are using Barrier. And I always suggest using Reviving Barrier. And then you can take the Magic Aid. This will give you increased magic recovery, even though you don't really need it. Racials. High Elf. The reason I chose High Elf for the Meridia's Guardian is one reason. Now, you can tank with High Elf, even in Ebon, Alkosh, Lord Warden. It still works out really well. But I like to use the Meridia's Guardian because of that defensive bonus it gives against trash with the blinding. Now, the reason I chose High Elf, Spell Recharge. Awesome ability. Now, whenever you use a class ability, you get 640 magicka back every 6 seconds. This helps you sustain shields and other abilities that you use magicka-wise really just a lot better. On top of that, whenever you use a channeled ability, your or cast time ability, you take 5% less damage. Anytime you heavy attack, this is a channeled ability, and it doesn't matter what weapon you're using, because this takes time to charge. It will always be a charged attack, and you will take 5% less damage as a High Elf, even on a heavy attack from an Ice Staff, because it's considered a charged ability. It takes time to charge up and fire off. So it will give you the 5% damage reduction. So, Cerebin's Bane, or Boon, is also a good one. 2,000 extra magicka. It plays well with any tank you play, because having 2k extra magicka is always good. And then this one, Elemental Talent, isn't really something I would say is good, but I wouldn't say it's bad either. Because it does boost our spell damage, and we do use some skills, which are magicka-based abilities, which do are affected by that. So, by that extra stuff. When it comes to crafting, alchemy, medicinal use, always important. When using potion, it reduces the effects, or resulting effects last 30% longer. It makes potions last 45 seconds, which is like 3 seconds less than your cooldown. So, really, really good. And then on provisioning, gourmand and connoisseur. Because we do use tri-stat food, making them last 20 minutes longer is really, really good. So, alright, now, on to the skills on the bar. Starting with our main skill, Pierce Armor. This does major breach, major fracture. It also does a little bit of damage, and it taunts the enemy for 15 seconds. This is our primary taunt. We use this a lot because it's super cheap, and we can taunt enemies really fast with it. The next ability we have is Heroic Slash. We have this here for the damage, the movement speed debuff, and the minor maim, which reduces enemies' damage by 15% for 12 seconds. It also grants us minor heroism, granting us 1 ultimate every 1.5 seconds for 9 seconds. So we gain 3 extra ultimate every 9 seconds. It's actually really nice. Next up, we have Blazing Shield. Now, Absorb Magic is that, or Absorb the other shield. I can't even pronounce it. The other morph of Blazing Shield you can use. The reason I choose Blazing Shield is because one shield absorbs more damage. The other one deals more damage back to the enemy. And I like to deal more damage back to the enemy than I do needing 2% more absorb. So I like using Blazing Shield because it does do more damage back to the enemies. It also can proc Burning Light, which deals damage back to enemies as well. So, and this will do physical damage back to the enemies. Also, whenever you activate the Blazing Shield, you do get the Spear Wall passive, so you do get the 3 seconds of minor protection, which gives you 8% damage reduction. And it is a total of 8%. So, really good. The other thing that's nice about having Blazing Spear on the main bar is you do get this. So you can critical damage with this, and it can be boosted by another 10%. So, it's just a nice trade-off, guys. So Blazing Shield is what I like to use. The next ability we have is a floater ability. I like to use Resolving Vigor. The reason why is because I like to have a heal on my front bar for when I'm tanking. I don't like to rely on healers all the time because they've got enough of a job to do to keeping everyone alive. And so trying to help them sustain myself is really important. So I like to use this. Now you can use 2 other abilities if you want. You can use Rush Ceremony morphed into Honor the Dead. You can use this, except it does cost a lot of magicka, guys. So I don't like to use it as much. That's why I like to use this. This is less in stamina, and I can also work back my stamina really easily. So next ability is Absorb Magic. We have this here mainly for the while the shield is equipped. You have block, 8% more block, and 8% reduced blocking. That's the main reason why we have it here. But also, we have it here because it does give us a 21k shield that heals us for 16% of our max health. Alright, but before I go on, I do want to talk a little bit about this other Vigor thing that you can swap it out for. And this is another reason why I do have the Deep Thoughts here. Is if you want to use Deep Thoughts, you can use Deep Thoughts. And if you do, put it where Vigor is. Do not put it where Absorb Magic is. You want to keep Absorb Magic on your bar all the time. So use Deep Thoughts where Vigor is. You do have to be a little bit more careful, but it does give you an extra 5,800 point shield. So, alright. Last ability we have on our bar, and you can swap this out with the Reviving Barrier if you want, but I prefer to just keep this here, and that is Shield Discipline. This will give you a reinforce your shield, allowing you to automatically block all attacks at no cost for 7 seconds. Your one-handed sword and shield abilities are reduced by 100% while active. This is really good when you're doing like Maw of Lorcage, you can pop this and drop this like 2 or 3 times. So you can reflect magical attacks and you can absorb that damage. It's really good. The other thing that I like about this is it also reduces the cost of Pierce Armor and Heroic Slash. So it saves me stamina that I can use Vigor better. So it's just a nice trade-off. I don't use it that often, to be honest, if I'm doing like Mav Lorkaj even on normal mode. I just mainly have this ability here in case I need it. Otherwise, I do use Reviving Barrier. Alright, moving on to the back bar, we have Inner Rage. We have those here for a ranged taunt. Yes, we do have this, will mean we have 2 ranged taunts on the back bar. We have this, and we have the heavy attack from our Ice Staff. If we don't have time to do this, to do a heavy attack, we can always do this. And then we can block. Alright, next up, we have Blockade of Frost. We have this here because we want an ability that we can put down that can keep Crusher up 100% easier for us. So if we have this up, as you can see, Crusher lasts for 4 seconds, Wall of Element lasts for 8. So you can have this hit twice, so you can swap between bars. As long as you keep it up every 8 seconds, you'll be fine. You'll be able to keep Crusher up 100%. On top of that, you do also get the chance of applying Shield on your enemies. Next ability. Another floater ability, guys. Power of the Light. Now, Power of the Light, I have this here because it does apply Major Fracture, or Minor Fracture, and Minor Breach. Both of them. Minor Fracture and Minor Breach, which reduces the enemy's spell and physical resist by another 1,320. It's not quite as good as Alkosh, but it gives us something we can use that's similar to Alkosh. So it's really nice. The other nice thing is that it does do physical damage, and that damage stacks up with all the damage it takes within the 6 seconds. So it's really, really good damage ability. The nice thing about this ability, and the reason why I use it, is for one of my class passives, though. And that is Prism. Casting a Dawn's Wraith ability generates 3 ultimate. This effect can occur once every 6 seconds. So whenever I'm on my back bar, I will drop my Blockade of Frost and Power of the Light to keep this going. So I get this Prism every 8 seconds. I will get a Prism. I'll get 3 ultimate. So I drop Dawn's Wraith or Power of the Light every 8 seconds. Yeah. Next ability we have on our bar, and you can use either versions of this, but I prefer Ritual of Retribution. The reason I like Ritual of Retribution is it does remove 2 negative effects from me. It heals me and my allies that are within the 12-meter radius of this. And then for every 2 seconds, for 12 seconds, and it can heal for quite a bit. The light of the area, the circle of the area is in, also deals magic damage every 2 seconds for 12 seconds. Now, every time I cast this ability, I also give my group Illuminate. Casting a Dawn Wraith ability grants minor sorcery to you and your group for 20 seconds, increasing your spell damage by 10%. So whenever I cast Dawn's Wraith, I get extra spell damage on the back bar. So this actually goes up a little bit in healing and damage, which is really nice. But also, somebody can synergize off of this and use the synergy from this to cleanse harmful effects. Now, this isn't the only synergy I have. I also have my Taunt, my Inner Rage, which has a 38% chance of becoming a synergy. And it's a very decent, powerful synergy. But the nice thing is that somebody can synergize off of this or off of this. The other one is Extended Ritual. It just does more healing. And it still purifies anyone who uses it, will remove any negative effects from themselves and heal them. So that doesn't change. It's just the healing to damage factor changes. And when you use it as Extended Ritual, it removes 5 negative effects instead of 2 from you. Alright, so the next ability we have is Restoring Focus. This one gives you Major Ward, Major Resolve, increasing spell and physical resist by 5,280, and restores 240 stamina every second that this is up. Now, while you're standing in the circle, which you will want to stand in the circle, it will increase your physical and spell resistance by another 50%. So this is a very powerful ability that when you place it, it boosts your resistances by X amount. But if you step out of it, oops, you'll see that your resistances do go down, but not by a huge massive margin. So you want to stay in your circle as much as possible so you can keep those high resistances. And that's why we use it. The next and last and final ability, of course, is Aggressive Warhorn. This is the ability you will be using most of the time. This will give you and your group members 10% more Magicka stamina for 30 seconds, but it also grants your group Major Force, increasing critical damage by 15% for 9 seconds. So it is a very, very important thing you want to keep up whenever it comes off a cooldown. But not necessarily when it comes off a cooldown. You really want to keep it timed for certain situations. Usually on a burn factor of a boss, like a burn set, like if you're trying to get a boss to a certain percentage of health, fire your Warhorn. This will help your group get it down quicker to that percentage. So this way, when the next burn factor comes into play, you can do it again. So this is why we use so much Ultimate Generation also. Alright, but that is the skills of Meridia's Guardian. Pretty much all the tank builds that I will be doing for the Templar will pretty much be using the same skills, guys. Alright, so now that we've done the skills, let's go over the champion points. We are going to start with the red tree. Now, I do have the red tree set to a specific that I usually run all the time. You can change these to fit your own needs. You don't have to run this particular setup. There's a reason why I run this setup this way. Alright, so starting with the red tree, we have 66 in Ironclad. This reduces direct damage taken by 22%. If you put 81 into here, it's another 2%. So you're really not losing much at 66. And you really won't notice much of a difference. We have 31 into Thick Skin. This reduces your damage taken from damage over time effects by 13%. Again, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. I prefer this because I don't need a whole lot of damage reduction from damage over time when I can cleanse myself of most damage over time effects. Hardy and Elemental Defender, both of them have 56 points. This reduces physical poison disease damage by 12%. This reduces flame frost, shock, and magic damage by 12%. And yes, Thick Skin and Ironclad do stack with these. So this one being at 13 and this being at 12 does give me a 25% damage reduction from poison, disease, chilled, burning, that stuff. It applies to all of it. And then any direct damage is actually reduced by 34 or 44 by 34%. So I get a lot more damage reduction than it looks. Alright, moving on. We do have 40 in the Bastion. This is the increase the effectiveness of our shields by 16%. I have done the test, done the math, guys. Even at 81 points in here, I only get 1% more in my mitigation on my shields. And this is why I like using this, is for when I do use my Blazing Shield, you can see I go to 12k. If I had 81 points into it or more, I would only go up a little bit more. Now, if I have no 40 points in here, I only get like a 9k, almost 10k shield, or just at a 10k shield. So that's why I like to get that 12k shield. That 2k can make a difference. So, and I can pretty much keep this up indefinitely. Especially when you include my total recoveries is 1,369 magic and 1,034 stamina. So I can keep my recoveries up really well. The nice thing is that I can use this and then heavy attack, and I can get more resources back. Because if I'm low on stamina, I can pop a shield and a heavy attack, and then I can get some resources back so I can go in and block. But I also have this down, so I will still be getting some stamina back while I'm blocking. It's a very small amount. It just basically mitigates my block costs even more. It makes my block costs like 200 and something in total. Alright, moving on. We have 19 into quick recovery. This increases our healing received by 5%. It's not a lot. It's really not that much, but it's enough that you do notice when you heal yourself. So it's really good. Next, we have 2 into heavy armor focus. This is just to kind of bring our heavy armor up a little bit, because our heavy armor is so low in resistances compared to our magic resistance. Excuse me. Moving on. We have 56 into Warlord. This reduces break free cost by 20%. 16 into Bashing Focus. This reduces our bash cost by an extra 10%. Now we are using 2 shield play enchants, which does give us reduced block costs and reduced bash costs. So this does help with our bashing as well. So it does, our bashing is super cheap. If we need to interrupt an enemy, we have the resources to do it. Moving on. You don't have to do this. This is what I prefer to do. I like to use 43 into each of these. 43 into Mooncalf gives you 10% stam recovery. 43 into Arcanus gives you 10% magic recovery. And then 43 into Tenacity returns 10% of your resources on heavy attack. And this is how I like to run my Templar, personally. Moving on over here, we have 56 into Shadow Ward. This reduces our block cost by 20%. Now, I have done 81 points in here. This will take you up to a 24% reduced cost. That extra 4% does play really well with this build, but it is not, again, necessary. Because we have so much block cost already, reduction, we don't really need any more. So just the 20% alone is enough. Also, I'll put a link in the description below if you guys want to go check it out yourself. You can use Wooler's block cast reduction calculator to see what the total block cost reduction is with this setup. Next up, 13 into Tumbling. This reduces our dodge roll cost by 6%. It's not a whole lot, I'll be honest, but that 6% is actually 8% because we have reduced dodge rolling from our medium armor passives. So, moving on over here, we have 43 into Bless. This increases our healing done by 10%. 56 in Elfborn. This increases our critical healing and critical damage of our magic abilities by 20%. And then we have 16 into Physical Weapon Expert and 40 into Master at Arms. The reason we have these two is to get Reposit. Anytime you block an attack, you have a 15% chance of dealing 3,873 physical damage back to the enemy every 5 seconds. It's really powerful. Surprisingly, I've killed enemies with this. So, all right, moving on. We have 43 into Mighty. This increases our physical poison disease damage by 10%. We have 23 into Thaumaturge. This increases our damage done with damage over time effects. I'll be honest, it's not necessary, but the reason I like keeping all these here is because of the Exploiter passive. I know we can't take really a big advantage of that, but it actually does come in handy when you have it. You can also try to build higher here if you want to get this, to give you 3 more ultimate whenever your health drops below 20%. But honestly, your health should never drop below 20% as a tank. So, just saying. So 43, we have 40 into Precise Strikes and 43 into Mighty. Mainly this is just to boost our light and heavy attack damage. Even though we don't need it, it does come in handy when you're soloing. When you're solo playing. I'm going to say it now. If you are solo playing, this does come in handy. So, but this right here, the Precise Strikes, is to improve our Vigor, Heal. over time. So that's why we have this here. This way we can critically heal ourselves a little bit better. We do have 9 into piercing to increase our physical pin by 900. I didn't have any other place to put the 9 points, guys, so I just figured this would be best. And that is the build. That is the Meridia's Guardian. I do want to show you one thing, though. So if you have all your buffs up, by the way, so if you have this up, and you have your Blazing Shield and everything, let's say, you do get really good mitigation and stuff. But look at this here. You do have a 1481 weapon damage with a 1593 spell damage, which is nice. Not gonna lie, it's really nice. But look at this vigor here, so you guys can see. If I can get it to crit, it does do about 2,606. And it doesn't crit all the time, but it does crit enough that it will keep you alive when you have this down and this down. So between the two of them, look at that. That's 1,000 health there, and then 1,000 almost. It's roughly about almost 3k health, and sometimes over 3k health while you're blocking. That does help you mitigate a lot of damage as well, keeping these two abilities going. So that's why we use Vigor. Before anyone says, why not use Silver Leash? Silver Leash is a good ability, guys. It really is, but it costs stamina. With this, I can use a Magicka taunt at ranged, and I can use the Helm to pull enemies to me with blocking. So that's why I like using this with the Swarm Mothers. But that is the Meridia's Guardian, guys, for the Wrathstone DLC. I hope you guys like it. If you guys do, you guys know what's coming next. Go ahead and hit that like button. If you guys want to see more builds by me, you can subscribe. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day. And this guy might see you in game. Bye.